In the snowy early morning hours of January 29, 2022, police officer John O'Keefe was laying unconscious on the front lawn of 34 Fairview Road in Canton, Massachusetts. Hours earlier, his girlfriend Karen Reed dropped him off at the house to attend a party with several friends, including Jen McCabe. Shortly after 6 a.m., O'Keefe is found with no pulse by his girlfriend Karen, Jen McCabe, and a third friend, Carrie Roberts. How O'Keefe wound up dead on the front lawn of a house party that he was supposed to attend remains a mystery, but the ground beneath him may hold a key to the truth. The state claims O'Keefe's girlfriend, Karen Reed, dropped O'Keefe off and struck him with her car between 12:30 and 1 a.m., leaving him to freeze to death for over 5 hours. But the defense says there was no car collision, that O'Keefe ended up on the lawn hours later, and Karen Reed had nothing to do with it. Today, I'm going to show you a theory that could unravel the state's entire case. I call it Good Lawgic's green grass theory. Let's start with the timeline, straight from the testimony. Ryan Nagel testified that he was in a car that pulled up behind the defendant's car, Karen Reed's car, and parked in front of 34 Fairview between 12:30 and 12:35 a.m. Nagel testified that snow was just starting to fall.
You were at that address around 12:30?
That is correct, sir.
And you offered us that you were there for about 5 minutes?
Yes?
Did you know the exact time you left?
No. Not off the top of my head right now, no.
Was it around that time?
Yes, sir.
Would it be fair to say you don't have certainty whether it was 12:35, 12:32, 12 o'clock?
It's probably before 12:35, roughly between 12:30 and 12:35.
You could still see the ground given
Yes.
the weather?
Yes, sir.
Was there snow starting to fall?
Just starting?
Around that time, around 12:30 when you left, was there inches of snow?
No, there was
On the
not
ground?
inches of snow, no. I could still see the grass coming through the snow. I mean, it's just like a coating.
You could still see the bare ground.
Correct, sir.
Then we have meteorologist Robert Gilman, who provided critical weather data. Gilman confirmed that by 1 a.m., only half an inch of snow had fallen, at most a light dusting.
What does not appear on this chart, but I want to make sure I can get this as accurate as possible, would it be appropriate to, before 1 a.m., to add a 0.2 for what you mentioned on direct for midnight? You mentioned there was a little bit starting and there was a 0.2. Is that correct? Did I hear that correct?
If you want to get the total for the snowfall event, yes.
Okay. So we then move to 1 a.m., which is 0.3 inches, correct?
Correct.
Now, if you add, and it seems like to be most accurate, to each number here, we would add a 0.2 to get the total, correct?
Correct.
So if we go to 1 a.m. on January 29, 2022, we've only got 0.5 inches of snow per this chart, correct?
Total so far, yes.
Because all accounts confirm that Reed had certainly left by 12:45 a.m., presumably less than half an inch of snow had fallen when Karen Reed drove off that night. Finally, we have Sarah Levinson. She testified about what she saw when she left the house of 34 Fairview and headed home around 1:30 a.m., nearly an hour after O'Keefe was allegedly struck.
Generally.
Between 1:30 and 2 in the morning.
Do you have a specific time? Did you look at your watch? Did you know a certain time you left?
No, I believe it was closer to 1:30 because I believe I was home by 2, but I can't say for sure.
When you left, tell us what the weather was like when you went outside. Was it the same as when you came in?
No, it was snowing.
What was the conditions like? Had they changed, the wind or temperature?
Yes. Yeah, it was colder.
How much snow was on the ground at that point when you left?
I don't know, a dusting, or I could still see like some little pieces of grass like sticking out of it. But it was pretty much like the walkway and everything was white.
Levinson said there was still just a light dusting of snow, and she could see patches of grass. So let's think about the state's theory with this timeline in mind. If Karen Reed hit John O'Keefe at 12:35 a.m., his body would have crashed into the ground. At that moment, with barely any snow on the lawn, his body heat and the impact would have melted those tiny traces of snow beneath him. He'd be lying on grass or dark mud. As the snow continues to fall over the next 5 hours, his body would act like a tarp, shielding the ground underneath from any snow. Picture this. If O'Keefe was lying flat on his back, snow couldn't pile up under his shoulder blades, his hips, or his head. If he was on his side, the snow wouldn't accumulate beneath his knees, thighs, hip, forearm, or shoulder. His body would insulate the ground like a human-sized tarp. You can see here, snow falls around the body, but not beneath it. By the time he was found at 6 a.m., after several inches of snow had fallen, what would you expect to see when they lifted his body? You'd see a stark contrast, a patch of green grass or dark mud where his body had been pressing down for hours. No snow would be there. It would be surrounded by the blustering snow that had been accumulating around his body for hours. That would be undeniable proof that O'Keefe had been lying on the lawn since before the snow had started accumulating in earnest. Paramedics, friends, anyone at the scene would have noticed this. It would have been glaring to them. They'd intuitively realize he's been here for hours since the snow began. But here's the problem for the state. Not a single witness testified to seeing this. No one said, I noticed a dark patch of earth where his body had been. No one said, it was obvious he'd been there for hours because there was no snow beneath him. In fact, the testimony tells a very different story. Witnesses testified that they were collecting O'Keefe's blood from the snow. Blood from the back of his head was on the snow, not on the grass or the ground beneath it. Think about that. If O'Keefe had been lying there since 12:35 a.m., his blood would have seeped into the grass or mud before the snow piled up. But if his blood was on the snow, that means the snow was already there, several inches of it, before his body landed on the lawn. The green grass theory exposes a fatal flaw in the state's timeline. If O'Keefe had been on that lawn for over 5 hours, the ground beneath him would have told that story. The absence of snow under his body would have been irrefutable evidence that he was there before the snow accumulated, but no one saw that. Instead, the evidence points to a very different truth. John O'Keefe ended up on that lawn after several inches of snow had already fallen, hours after Karen Reed had driven away. The green grass theory isn't just a hypothesis, it's a lens that reveals the impossibility of the state's story. Maybe O'Keefe slipped and fell, hitting his head. Maybe something else happened. But whatever led to his death, the evidence shows it happened hours after Karen Reed left. The grass doesn't lie. Snow doesn't lie. The state's timeline, though, that's another story. Good Lawgic's green grass theory. What do you think happened that night? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If this video opened your eyes to a new perspective on the Karen Reed case, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives like this. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next video. This is Good Lawgic, and I'll see you in the next one.